Hello everybody, welcome back. Jiu-Jitsu 2000 here today. I'm back with an interesting video for you. Today I want to talk about Alone, and I want to talk about Season 2, Episode 3. It's very windy today. My apology for the wind. I'm getting ready to get to work, and I thought I'd come out and try to shoot this video and try to get it uploaded before I go to work. I want to get this information out to you. So my apology if you get a little wind noise. I'm kind of hunkered down in some of this brush here because I know it's a good natural windbreak. So hopefully that'll work out good for us. I have a little clipboard here with some notes that I've taken from the episode again, we're on Season 2, Episode 3. I want to give you guys a warning. If you have not seen that episode, please turn this video off right now because it will contain a lot of spoilers and I don't want to ruin your show. So with that being said, let's move forward. So we're talking about Season 2, Episode 3, the show Alone. We're still on day 7, talking about Mary Kate. That was a deep cut that she had with that axe. That was bad. I kind of was wondering if this was going to be something that took her off the show or not. 9 o'clock in the morning, the medics showed up to take her to the hospital. We had 9 people left at this point, including her. She said that she couldn't lift her thumb, and that's bad. Mary Kate's off the show, unfortunately. That was terrible. I feel so bad for her because I think she was a great contestant for the show, and she had such a good character and such a good she had so many skills, and it's sad to see someone go out like that. It's just, that would suck. I really feel bad for her. Now, one thing I wanted to note, and I don't know if this is included in the 10 items, it had to be, but when there was some footage that showed her camp, and she had a little white, looked like a plastic table, so I was kind of wondering where they got that. And then she also had a full-out Dutch oven, cast iron. I don't know if that was one of her items. If it was, that was probably a good choice. A heavy choice, but a good choice. You know, and then I go back and I'm thinking about Season 1, and I remember seeing things like milk crates, and I don't know if this is stuff that they found out there on the, you know, while they were out there, or if it was stuff that they were allowed to take in. I guess a milk crate or a table might not be considered an item. I don't know how they do that. So let's move forward. Let's talk about Larry real quick. It was kind of weird because the next thing that they cut in on the show, it's Larry, and he's talking about safety. He's talking about how important it is to be careful, and we just saw Mary Kate. You know, she didn't make it. And he was talking about the woods, that this is the hardest woods, the hardest terrain that he's ever had to climb through. He made that comment, and he was talking about no deer signs. So that was interesting. We saw Larry. Then it shoots in. We're talking about Randy now, and he's making a bow drill set, and I loved his demeanor. The guy lost his ferro rod. He's in a survival situation, and his demeanor was still calm, which tells me a lot about his character. I mean, he was still calm. He showed him working the bow drill, and he had very clean, good bow drill technique, in my opinion. You know, and they put a little thing on the screen that said that there's been evidence of the bow drill fire since the 4th century BC, so that's a long time. He talked about his rock that he was using for a bearing, that it was too coarse and it was creating friction, and so he was going to go get another a rock, hopefully with a smoother divot in it, so he could use that as a bearing. I don't know why he didn't use a natural hardwood that was wet, you know, a live wet wood. I've used that before and it's been successful. But at this point, watching the show, I was confident that he was going to get a coal. I was confident that he was going to get a fire. So we'll see what happens. So now we move in forward. We're going to be introduced to a new character, Nicole. Now, I'm surprised that they waited until day 7 to introduce Nicole and Jose. That was kind of weird. But she shows us her spot, her campsite that she had set up. She had a nice place set up there. She's the one, now that I know, remember last episode in my video, somewhere in there I talked about one of the two girls. It wasn't Tracy, but it was either Mary Kate or Nicole. But remember I said that one of those two, I couldn't remember which one of them was real sharp with wild medicinals and wild edibles. It was not Mary Kate, it's Nicole. So that's a good thing here. Unfortunately, we lost Mary Kate off the show, but it leaves us with Nicole, which has that medicinal, edible, wild edibles kind of ability. So that's gonna bring a good contrast to the show, in my opinion. So she's the one that knew that stuff. And then she starts talking about her stepson who passed away. He drowned in the Pacific Ocean. And I can tell that that's very heavy on her heart. She spent a month looking for this guy. I can tell this is heavy on her. And I'm not sure if this is going to be something that brings her down, because it seems like in these situations there's always something that brings that person down, and I don't know if this is going to be the one that brings her down or not. But I know that her kids and the loss of her stepson is really heavy on her. She's gonna miss them, her kids, you know. So she was working on her shelter. She made it stronger and warmer, and she speaks about the birds, and that was so smart of her as a survivalist, because she's aware, she's so in tune with the environment around her that she listens to the birds, because they tell her, hey man, there's something over here. Maybe they see a bear. And so she's using the birds. What that tells me is that she's just very in tune with her surroundings, and I like that about her. So now it goes back to Larry. Let's talk about Larry again. We're still on day 7, folks. This whole episode, for the most part, was all day 7. In fact, I think all of it was. I think it was all day 7. Yeah, the whole episode, all day 7. We're going to Larry. Now he's afraid that he liked his shelter, but he's afraid of that little creek, that fresh water that was going by his shelter. He's afraid that as the rain continues, that creek is going to get larger and swell up and eventually be up into his shelter. So he made a very wise decision to move. I thought that was cool. So he found 2 fallen cedar trees that were really solid. They had a somewhat flat ground under them, and he was going to make a shelter there. I thought that was very smart, because those trees that are down are going to be useful for wind block. They're going to be useful for structure for his shelter. They're going to be used for insulation, keep the radiation from expelling out of his shelter. Good move for Larry. I think that's very smart. Now, he was talking about making some steps. He stuck some sticks in the ground for steps for traction, because that area that he was at was very tough looking. It looked hard. That terrain looked terrible. Well, one thing that happened to him is, as he was carrying some stuff and he was moving, he ran into a tree, like a branch or something, right here in the collarbone kind of area. And I mean, it had to hurt, but we got to see one more time his temper. He got pissed off, and I love Larry, but I'm afraid that this could be a factor in him being on the show. He's got to keep that calm demeanor maintained, and I'm starting to wonder if that's going to be something that hurts him in the end. I don't know. We're going to find out. Now, it's moving forward. Let's talk about Jose. First time we get to meet Jose. We just met Nicole, right? Now we get to see Jose. He was making a digging stick, which was cool. And then he was looking for roots so he could put them in water and make some thread out of them. And I was wondering, what was he up to? What is he gonna make with that stuff? I was wondering. And I like his demeanor. He's very humble. I like that. He's real calm and really laid back, and he made a blower. He took a piece of wood and he split it, he batoned it in half, and then he dug out a thing, and then when he put it back together, It was like a blowgun almost, but it's for blowing the fire back to flame. So he doesn't have to get his face like way down in the fire. He can just blow it from a distance and get that flame. And that was really smart. And that's what he used the roots for, was to bind those two pieces of wood back together. Now we're talking about Tracy. She had a nice shelter. That's what I noticed. She had a really nice shelter. She's getting ready to set her gill net. And then it moves over to Nicole. She was working on her shelter and she heard some weird noises, like crazy weird noises. And I thought at that moment that those sounds were bear cubs playing or something. I wasn't sure, but I kept watching the show, and eventually it was bears on the other side of the lake, or the other side of the water over there. And another thing I noticed about her was she was eating wild sea asparagus, which was smart. There is, again, there's her wild edibles kicking in. So she's gonna stay, I think, you know, fed. She's gonna keep food in her body, I believe. So she was eating that wild asparagus. Now it pans back to Jose, and he's talking about his love for music and how music helps in a survival situation. It gives you hope, and he's talking about all this stuff, and I thought that was cool. And then he talks about, you know, how when you're singing or playing an instrument or making some sounds, musical sounds, that it lets the animals in the area around you know that you're there, which was smart. You know, when you're out there in the wilderness and you got all these bears and wolves, and you know, there's cougar, I think it was cougars or some kind of mountain lions or something like that up there. That sound, it just lets those animals know, so that there's not a surprise. They don't stumble upon you by a surprise and startle them. I thought that was cool that he has that understanding. Now it goes back to Randy. Remember, he was working on a fire with the bow drill set. He talked a little bit about last year's season 1 where the guy lost his ferro rod, and Randy was talking about that a little bit. How the guy last year said that without a ferro rod there was no chance of getting fire. And Randy kind of thought about it the same way I would have. He thought, you know, why not at least attempt friction fire? Yeah, I lost my ferro rod, but it is what it is. There is